Hello and welcome to this video. I think it's the first time you get to see my face, but you are watching grade 12 Dramatic Arts Exam Revision. My name is Lance Lai August, and this session is brought to you by the Amaqhawe Collective. This is session 6 in the series for grade 12, and today we'll be doing some revision on Sophiatown. Sophiatown is one of the plays that is prescribed for grade 12. It's not compulsory for your teacher to necessarily choose it. So you might find yourself doing dramatic arts and then not doing Sophiatown. So don't worry about that. But if you are doing Sophiatown, this video is definitely for you. So in today's session, basically, we will be looking at question 3 from the Dramatic Arts National Senior Certificate. Exam that was written in November 2019. There were 7 very lovely questions, and I'm quite happy to guide you through how to answer those questions. So without further ado, let's have a look at the question. Let's also see if I can make some annotations. I can definitely make some annotations. Cool. So question 3 is Sophiatown by the Junction Avenue Theatre Company. It's a play that was devised as a collective by a company of actors, performers, directors, you name it, called the Junction Avenue Theatre Company. The play was workshopped, which meant that there wasn't a fixed script when they started the production process, but the director followed a lot of processes to make sure that a script was born out of the collective. So the question is saying, study source C below and answer the questions that follow. Source C is a quote from American theater. It says, theater is a living, breathing, collaborative art form. Collaborative means that many people come together to give life to theater. To me, that means that every production is different depending on who's working on it. And it means depending on the audience in the room. This is what makes theatre powerful and memorable. So this quote basically speaks to theatre and how people work together to make theatre possible. It says that theatre is dynamic. The theatre process depends on whoever is in that process. Every process of theatre will be different. It depends on who is working on it. It depends on who the audience is. Every theatrical experience will be different. But they are saying that this is the strength of theatre and that this is what makes theatre powerful and memorable. So now if I have to go on to the question, it says that imagine you are a director. After reading the quote in source C, you are inspired to stage extracts or scene extracts from Sophiatown for the local school's play festival that is taking place in July 2020. In July 2020. And there are various things that are going to be required of you. So that is why from question 3.1 to 3.7, it's going to be important. All of these questions will have the context of you are going to perform extracts from Sophiatown at this particular festival. So without any further ado, let's have a look at question 3.1. 3.1 is asking you already to make a reference to Sophiatown. So with reference to Sophiatown, suggest why theatre can be viewed as a collaborative or working together art form. So the question is asking you 2 things for 4 marks. It's asking you to make a reference to Sophiatown in however you answer, and it's asking you to say why is it that theatre is a collaborative art form. Let me just bring up all the answers there, or my suggested answers for you. So basically, theatre can be viewed as a collaborative art form because theatre makers have come together to create this piece of theatre, because Sophiatown is somewhat of a musical piece of theatre. It involved performers or actors, it involved singers, it involved dancers and things like that. So all of those different sort of performance makers came together to create this piece of theatre. What's also important is that theatre is born out of different art forms coming together or fusing. So you have scenography, which is basically how the stage looks. So it's the designing people coming together, it's the actors coming together, it's the directing coming together, it's the sound, it's the lighting, it's the multimedia, it's all of those things coming together, and that is what makes theatre a fusion. Also, the cast works together as an ensemble or a group in rehearsal and performance with the director. So theater, you can't make theater alone. Well, you can make theater alone, but yeah, it's collaborative because it's a lot of people involved in the process. And then also all of these artistic elements work together to create um, a piece of theater. And remember, it's very important to make references to Sophiatown. So there's quite a few references that you can make, but what stood out for me, especially in the form of the fact that it's collaborative, it's that the play was workshopped and that the Junction Avenue Theatre Company worked together to create the production. So basically, you would be awarded full marks if you give at least two well-motivated statements or four separate thoughts and ideas, and your answer could include the knowledge and understanding of the reasons for why theatre is viewed as an art form, and also by applying references to Sophiatown, if that makes sense. So now question 3.2 is asking you to explain why you think Sophiatown may be a good choice for a school's play festival. Let me just bring up my answers there. Okay, cool. You can see my answers, and now let me just go into a little bit of an explanation. So basically, you see the question is worth 4 marks, and it's asking you why is Sophiatown relevant for the for this school's festival. It's very relevant because it deals with aspirations of young people, and the example that I use there is characters like Ruth and Princess who are looking at ways to better their life, ways of expanding their life experience. So you see how it deals with the aspirations of life of young people. Also, it creates or it expresses the aspirations and desires for a better life for the people who stay in society. And a very clear example there is Mama Riti, who becomes an entrepreneur by opening a shebeen. Furthermore, what makes this play relevant to the school's play festival is because it educates people about our painful past, and this is considering the forced removals and also the injustices that were done to people of color, Black, Indian, and colored people under the Group Areas Act. And then also the issues that the play deal with, it's relevant and it's topical for young people. You see themes of gangsterism, you see themes of domestic violence, themes of political revolt, which is becoming very common for young people these days. Young people are deciding to are starting to see and realize what their rights are, and they are starting to rebel if their rights aren't met. So all of these reasons are a very good guide to how you could approach such a question. You would get full marks for giving at least two well-motivated statements or for giving four separate thoughts and ideas. Yeah, so let's move on to the next question. Question 3.3 is asking you to list and motivate the skills, the performance skills that you would require from actors who audition for the production, and that is worth 6 marks. So it's asking you two things. It's asking you to list, which means that you need to list at least maybe 3 skills, and then it's asking you to motivate why you are giving those 3 skills. And I think listing the skill and motivating the skill would give you 2 marks. Listing the second skill and motivating the second skill would give you a further 2 marks, and listing a third skill and motivating the third skill will give you a further 2 marks. Those are your 6 marks. There's actually quite a few. Yeah, let me just go back. Sorry. There's actually quite a few here that you can use, and I'll explain each of them briefly. The first one is definitely your cast would need acting skills. Good acting skills is needed to portray the various characters realistically. For example, portraying Mingus, who is a leader of an American gang. Your actor, whoever is doing that role, needs to be able to depict it very well, realistically. The second skill is strong vocal clarity and audibility, because you need to keep the audience engaged in all times. You can't ever a performer who is talking soft, it's not going to work. That's also why you need to do nice vocal clarity and resonance exercises in your warm-ups in rehearsals, before rehearsals, after rehearsals, before performance, etc. etc. The next skill that I would think your performers would require is a relaxed physical presence when they are on stage, so that they aren't tense, because if they are tense, it will mean that they will in that their performance effectiveness will be inhibited. If they are not relaxed, they won't be able to release their full potential in performance. The next skill is performance energy and focus. It's always needed, because you as the performer need to bring the performance the audience into the action that's happening on stage. And if you aren't there, if your energy is here and not there, then there's not going to be a reciprocation of interest in the performance by the audience. So it's very important for the performers to have good energy and good focus. And once again, that's something that warm-ups can help very good with. You do some focus games, you do some energy games, you do some vocal and resonance warm-ups and exercises, then your performance will be at its peak. The performers would need to be versatile, and they would need to be able to move easily, because it's a very hype play, and the actors move around the stage space and the set. For example, there's a scene where Mingus moves his stolen goods to Mamariti's house. You need the performer to be fast and agile in doing that. So that's once again also something that warm-ups and physical exercises can assist with in the performance space. And then the last skill, in my opinion, is the ability to sing and dance, because singing and dancing is what conveys the mood and the atmosphere. And there are countless examples that you can refer to. For example, when Ruth brought the spirits from Yeovil, the cast, they celebrate in song and dance. So in answering this question, you could either get those 6 marks for 3 well-motivated statements, as I explained, or if your answer includes an understanding of the performance skills that are required, and knowledge of the requirements of an audition process, or even an explanation of how these things can be worked on in the rehearsal space and in the performance space, as I outlined to you, then you should get very good marks for that answer. Question 3.4 is asking you to select one scene in the play, and it's asking you to explain to the actors that you have cast in your production what the appropriate style of acting will be to perform the scene that you have selected. So now it's asking you to select any of the scenes in the play, and it's very important that you outline what scene you are using in the play. You need to give a description of what the scene is. You need to tell us who is in the scene, and you need to tell us what is in the scene. So it's very important, because you are marked for it. And then once you have selected your scene, now you need to start showing us as the markers who, or rather what style of acting you will use. And there are a lot of different acting styles that you can use, but you can refer to the work of Bertolt Brecht, you can refer to the musical elements, and you can refer to dancing. And so let me just give you an example of what I would do hypothetically. If I were to use Brecht, I would use the character of Jakes to directly address the audience as a narrator. If I were to use musical elements, I would sing, because the characters often break out into song at important moments of the play. For example, the final scene of the play, when they are forcefully removed, they sing. Dancing, because dancing is powerful. It's a powerful means to communicate the message of the play, and it's effective in communicating visual imagery. And then also dancing also keeps the audience engaged, because it's used as a variation from the dialogue, and communicates mood and atmosphere and things like that. So when you are answering this question, it's important to include an understanding and application of an appropriate style of acting. It's important to show reference to a selected scene, and the reference of the scene should include the description of the scene, indication of the characters in the scene, and also clarity of the events that are portrayed in the screen. Question 3.5 for 8 marks, very lengthy question. It's asking you to evaluate how any two incidents in the play may evoke or cause different responses depending on the different audience's experiences. So, just to clarify what the question is asking you, there are a lot of incidents in the play. The question is asking you to evaluate or think of how audiences may respond to that particular instance. There may be different audiences that come and watch this play. You could have an audience that were privileged or a white audience. How would they respond to certain moments? Or you could have a audience who was negatively affected by apartheid. How would they respond to seeing the things? And there I just outlined it in a table with some examples. So an example there is Mingus asking Jakes to write a love letter for him, and there could be a multi response to that by the audience. So the audience might be, if it's a previously advantaged audience, the audience might be embarrassed because it will show how they were educational injustices or educational inequalities under apartheid. Also, it could also lead to feelings of sadness or anger because if it's an audience that was, directly affected by apartheid, it might just remind them of that time and they might just be angry again. Then also, there's another example of Fafi trying to teach Ruth Tsotsita or Tsotsi language, and the audience could respond to that with laughter, especially at the vernacular jokes from if local residences are, in the audience, because they will identify with it and they will understand every nuance. Like, for example, jokes about the policeman in Tsotsita and things like that, as it showed in the play. Also, policemen arriving 3 days earlier to forcefully remove people from their homes. And that could also have a few responses. For example, it could lead to sympathy from an empathetic audience who will remember what it meant to be forcefully removed from their homes. It could also lead to mobilization from a dissatisfied audience who are unhappy with that, and because people are hungry for change. And then there could also be anger at the lack of change, despite the demands for change to take place. And it's important to note that you need to integrate the incidents with the audience responses if you want to get full marks. Very, very, very important that you practice that. Question 3.6 is asking you to suggest to festival organizers how the performance space may be used rather, sorry, to creatively highlight the style of the play. So this play could be performed in multiple environments. It could be, performed in any found space. It could be performed in a school hall, in a classroom, in a prison, in a theater foyer, etc. What's important is that you need to show an understanding of how it is that particular theater space will influence the play, and also an understanding and application of how that space affects the style of the play. So you hypothetically, if you use a school hall, you need to take into account that you might get a very theaterish kind of feel, whereas if you use a prison, it will affect the stylistics of the performance because you might not be able to go all the way out with music and lights and all of those things because of the space that you are in. So you get hypothetically, okay, so you get 1 mark for identifying the space and 3 marks for motivating why exactly you choose that space. Then the last question is usually an essay question, and that would bring you 10 marks, and then it would bring you to 40 marks for the question as a whole. It's asking you to discuss. So if you are asked to discuss, it means that you need to go into detail how you would direct the ending of the play to create a powerful and memorable moment for audiences of the festival. And then you need to name specific production and performance elements in your answer. This is a question where you need to show off, you need to show the marker how much knowledge you have. It's very, very, very important. So there are a lot of things here that you can uh, a lot of things here that you can write about. and I will outline them to you now. So the first thing is or rather, let me just say that your answer needs to include knowledge of the ending of the play. You need to know what is happening at the end of the play. Uh, you need to show a creative evaluation of the direction. You need to show how the production elements that you choose can impact the audience, and you need to also show that you understand what is happening in the original staging and interpretation of the play. So, how you could direct the end of the play. You could work on the blocking of the actors in a manner that conveys the chaos and despair of the forced removals. They might be scattered all over the performance space to show that chaos. You could also create a tableau with a spotlight on each character as they deliver their monologues, because this will focus the attention of the audience on the character's pain at being forcefully removed from Sophiatown. You could also sing appropriate songs that are soulful and that will communicate the deep sadness that you feel at being forcibly removed from Sophiatown. Also, you could use lighting effects to highlight the somber mood and atmosphere, and also to highlight the effects of the forced removals. With lighting, of course, also goes sound. Like you could use sound effects such as the noise of sledgehammers in the background to show that the demolition of the houses has already begun, and this will make the scene much, much more painful. You could also use the playing of traditional music. Of this diverse community, because Sophiatown was a very eclectic community, which it would provide the required mood and atmosphere. And then lastly, you could use specific performance styles. For example, Brecht, again, I love Brecht, to create distance between alienation between the audience and the actors, and this would hypothetically encourage the audience to remain objective and to interrogate the message being conveyed. An example of how you could do Brecht in this sort of context is hypothetically to have a narrator. That's the simplest way I could put it. So that brings us to the end of that question. But in answering this kind of question, it's important to remember that markers will accept relevant and well motivated answers. As long as it's relevant, as long as it's well motivated, you will get those marks. They mark holistically, they don't mark according to a strict memo. Um, if there's anything that you have learned, I want you to remember to apply the knowledge. Yes, you have a grammatic arts textbook that gives you the theory, but apply that knowledge by using examples from the play. Show the marker that you understand what the particular context is, and link it to something appropriate in the play, or link it to something in practice, so that we understand what is happening. And then also look carefully at the question. Is it requiring you to evaluate? What does evaluate mean? Is it requiring you to discuss? What does discuss mean? Is it requiring you to compare? What must you compare? Between what, two or three or four things must you compare? Look carefully at the question and what it requires from you. And then finally, look at your mark allocation and use your mark allocation as a guide to the length of your answer. So that's it from me and the Amarkawi Collective. I hope that I've really helped you in getting um yeah, I hope that I really helped you in being able to answer this question of Sophiatown. I really, really enjoyed the session with you. I hope you enjoyed it too. If you have any comments, please leave it below. And until next time, enjoy, stay safe, wash your hands, wear your mask, sanitize, social distance. Thanks. Bye.